Oh, it's already there. So then you can just go there and share it. I'll share it into the page. And so we're ready to go. Oh. Wonderful. Let me know when you're ready to start. Just give me a thumbs up when you're ready to start, so we can start. So you have already finished everything there.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, perfect.
Start.
Great. So yeah, I was really looking forward for our meeting. We have been trying to meet since Egypt. That was like, when was that? That was like in May, right? Whoa. Amazing how time flies. So thank you for coming today, Mongy. I heard from you from a friend from France, actually. So like our connection was coming through France, and we got connected when I was in Egypt, and then we didn't manage to meet, and then we said that we're gonna meet like online, and that's happening like now. So I'm really, really curious to get to know you better. I have heard I have heard different things about you, all of them really exciting and very interesting, but I would love to hear them from you, to tell you the truth. So I would like starting. I was just like to see who is like Mongy right now. Who is this person to? Like, how do you identify yourself right now? And you can share whatever you feel. You can share your personal, your right now moment, your career, whatever you feel like sharing.
So I find it very difficult to speak about myself, but what I can say is my being is very connected to the land and to the soil of the African continent and specifically the Nile basin. And I like to think of myself as a custodian and a servant of the healing and emancipation of the Nile and her people, and as well as I'm trying to regenerate what is left from the ecosystem, the natural ecosystem of the Nile. And also to work with the people and the communities who are custodians of this river to enable this ecosystem to be of life support, an ecosystem that supports life and regenerative actions, I would say.
So let me ask you, like, why the Nile? Meaning, having been in Egypt, I kind of have a little bit of an idea of more, like a further idea about the Nile. But I have to admit that before that, my deep extended ignorance was that the Nile was only in Egypt. I was starting from there, and I kind of feel that it might not be only my ignorance, but it can be a more like broad ignorance in the world. So why the Nile? Like, how did you get involved with the Nile, and why do you feel that the Nile is like an essential part to restore the ecosystem in the countries that is passing? That I know now that there are 11, right? Like, it's a pretty long water body that is running across Africa.
So I would like to think of the Nile beyond just what many of the people heard in their history classes or reading Agatha Christie and all of that. This is, I would say, it's a bit Western oriented. So the Nile is the river that, of course, the longest river in the world, but it's the river who has the biggest riparian countries in the world. So there are 11 countries that share the Nile. 1 in every 3 Africans call the Nile Basin home. So you can imagine how the importance of the Nile is. The discharge of the water of the Nile is less than shorter rivers like the Limpopo, like the Danube. So there is less water in the Nile, in this whole Nile, than the Danube. And there are around 480 million people that depend directly or indirectly on the Nile. So this is the very factual aspect. But the Nile is more than that. The Nile is more than the water course. The Nile is an energetic being that witnessed the life of humanity since it starts. The Nilotic meridian connects, is the central nerve of the earth meridians. It connects Greece, ancient Greece, it connects ancient Egypt, it connects ancient Zimbabwe. So the difference between the equator and ancient Zimbabwe and the equator and the capital of ancient Egypt, Thebes, is exactly the same on the Nilotic meridian. The Nilotic meridian holds spaces for um, mystical and magical things that only exist on the Nilotic meridian, like the white lines, for example, that exist in South Africa on the Nilotic meridian. The Nile holds the space between tectonic plates. The Rift Valley, for example, is not, for example, the Rift Valley of Africa is shaped based on the flow of the Nile. And so there is much more to the Nile than just a water course, than a river. Although a river is too much by itself. So you can imagine how it is. And if you think about water, water is like the veins to the earth. So the people who share the Nile, they share blood, basically. They are blood ties. So having grown on this river and seeing the evolution of how this river has been growing in the minds and hearts of people, but also that it's a river that shaped the history and carved the geography of 11 countries in Africa. That's too huge. It's too huge for the humanity. It's too huge for Earth beyond humanity, actually.
Thank you for adding this additional layer actually on the water bodies, because I do also feel that water is it's not only an element that is alive, because everything is alive anyway, but it's an element that is right now, I feel, is trying to communicate something to us humans. Maybe a little bit more than the other elements for now, like for this specific time and space that we are. How are currently, like I saw that you have been working a lot with conflict resolution, and I can imagine that I don't know how it is in Africa, but in Greece, for example, we say that if you put 8 Greeks, you will have 9 opinions. So you can imagine how much of a conflict resolution could be used in our country, for example. And I'm wondering, how are the current relationships between the countries that the Nile is passing through, and how would you dream of the Nile connecting them back through its flow?
So the Nile is a very heavily politicized river. So the relationship between the countries of the Nile is a very conflicting one, mainly because the agreements between the Nile countries are shaped from the colonial heritage, and the usage of the Nile water is shaped from the colonial heritage and also from a very unsustainable development paradigm that tends to think the Nile from a very utilitarian perspective, be it from using it for only agriculture in a very unsustainable way, or energy building infrastructural dams and barrages to use infrastructure, and narrow perspective only in your border countries, then it's a recipe for having conflicts with other nations, because for you it starts and it ends in your country, but not thinking about how the dynamics of the river and the flow of the river is happening. And this is not very new. This is since early ages. The quest for controlling the river has been there. So I don't want to fantasize of like the old times and so on and so forth. It has been there were elements of, you know, a quest of controlling and shaping the river rather than making the river flow with what it brings, what she brings. What I dream of is for people who are living around the Nile to think of the Nile as a sentient being, as a living being, more than just a resource. And what I dream of is for the people of the Nile to realize the connection that they have through the Nile, and not the disconnection that they have because of the Nile. And also, I would realize that we would realize that our future and is lying together. The drop of water doesn't know border. It's just artificially in our heads that we have made these borders, and we have made these infrastructural projects because of our the way we look at the river, but the river doesn't look at herself like that. And I would like to emancipate the language of how we relate to ourselves and relate to the Nile, and the identity that we are part of this ecosystem. And it's not only about the Nile, it's also about how we view ourselves in relation to nature, how we flow with nature, and how so how we see ourselves as nature as well. And when we have this look, then the way we look at other species and other ecosystems and other beings around us shifts completely, and the way we relate and the way we navigate with this river will be very different. This river and any other ecosystem will. But when you have dams built like around this river, literally the ecosystem beyond the dam is dead. Is dead. It's not regenerated. It's not refueled. And the more dams we build, the more control we have over the river. But the more we lose the river, the more we lose the connection to the river. Because if there is unpredictability with the river, then you need to connect a little bit more with it. But if you have a complete control over the river, then there is no need to connect with it. The river is there, but it's not present for you.
That's very interesting as the thinking, and I feel that that's practically applying almost in everything that we have been obsessing about controlling in modern society, that we do control, but in the end, even if we have it there, it's not there anymore, practically by essence. Guide me a little bit, take me a little bit some years back. How was your personal connection to the element of water and nature happen? Like, was it a gradual, was it something specific that happened? Like, how did you end up filling the river? And also, I heard you saying calling the river she, and I'm wondering, this awareness of a female attribute maybe to the river, and I would love to hear more about that.
So I don't have any recollection, or I don't have any strong opinions whether it's a he or a she, but I feel that the feminine energy that is within us and outside us is very strongly needed in our life now. So I would like to highlight the feminine aspect within this water body. So that's why I'm saying it's a she. How I connected with the Nile, I think it was a gradual connection. I think it started when I was a kid and I was living in France, actually. And I was doing, my parents got me a puzzle about, I was really fascinated with geography. They got me a puzzle of the different continents, and my parents told me start with Africa because this is where we come from. And it was to my surprise that when I started with putting the puzzle together, the only water body that I could see, apart from the different oceans and the Mediterranean, but the inner water bodies was Lake Victoria, which we call it Nalubale in Luganda, and the Nile. And I was wondering, like, why not other rivers? Why is that the importance of the Nile is to feature in a children puzzle? And this is when I started like pondering over the importance of the Nile and the water. And when I lived here, I lived not far from the Nile in Cairo. The Nile was there, but it wasn't present for me. And this is when I wanted to have a quest of being more of presencing with the Nile, I would say. And this started maybe 8 years ago, I would say, consciously. That's when
I actually I can confirm that a lot, that there was a completely different feeling of the river down in Aswan and in Cairo. It's like, I mean, seeing the beautiful places down there and having crossed across the river until Luxor, and then seeing it, like flying to Cairo and sitting in Cairo and around Cairo and next to the pyramids, which is like extremely polluted. It's almost like, it's devastating actually to see that the difference between the two. How is it further back? So like, I know that now that you're working actually in Sudan, so you're going one country before practically. How is the Nile like going backwards in the countries? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect.
So the Nile has very variant ecosystems. Like traditionally, there are 5 major ecosystems of the Nile: the lake area, and then the Sud, which is the swampland, which is majorly within South Sudan, and then the Blue Nile, which is the from Lake Tana in Ethiopia towards Sudan, and then the White Nile from the Sud area to Sudan, and then the main Nile after Khartoum until the Mediterranean. And every part has its specificities, but also there is a different flair because of how this going and back between the different countries and the custodians of the river, and how the river and the water stored elements of the past, I believe. So in Ethiopia, it's a source of pride from a very heavenly spiritual level, and that's my judgment. Huh? And in folk stories, in dreams, it's almost something unreachable. And also, it's taken as a river that leaves its origin and goes somewhere else, almost like a traitor light, but it's not really. So it's this dimension, because the nature of how it is in Ethiopia is like it's very deep in a canyon. It almost breaks the canyon and goes down, and it's very fast. The acceleration of the river is very fast. And when it reaches Sudan, in Sudan, there is a nickname of the river. It's in Sudanese Arabic, it's called El Haddam. El Haddam is the destroyer, because you could hear its roar from a very far away. And when it comes to Egypt, you have the feeling that things are a bit in control. That's how it's a bit tight. The river, it's almost like the river wants to emancipate itself, but it's held. That's how it feels to me, and how I relate to the Nile. In at the very the other source of the Nile. So there are 2 sources: the Lake Tana in Ethiopia, and Nalubale, Lake Victoria in or the lakes region in around Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and even south more, like the Kagera River in Rwanda and Burundi. This is it feels like when I was there actually a month and a half ago. It feels very much like birthing. it feels like a womb. And this is my expression, and this is how I relate to the river. So I might not do justice to the diverse opinions of how people relate to the river. And by the way, I wanted to say something related to your opinions and the metaphor about the Greeks. I think it's okay to have different opinions. And I think we should have different opinions. And what we do in the Nile Journeys is the recognition that we need the complementarity and the difference between us in order to create what's bigger than any one of us. And when we have this realization, then we can co-create and transcend conflicts rather than live within conflicts.
That's a lovely direction actually to take. And I'm wondering, how do you like the Nile Journeys? Do you feel them connecting with what's gonna be coming up in December and the beautiful festival that you are preparing? As I understood, again, right, it has happened already once, and it's gonna be the second time, if I'm not wrong, right? Tell me a little bit more about how do you feel your work connecting to the festival? How do you feel the festival serving the overall cause? Where is this taking you?
Let me tell you first about the Nile Journeys and then tell you about the festival, if that's okay. So,
Absolutely.
because there is a sense of mistrust and near animosity between the different countries of the Nile, this is our problem, and our assumption is that this is the top of the iceberg, and the top of the iceberg is a disconnect between there is a spiritual disconnection from the Nile, and there is an ecological disconnection from the water and the river. There is a social disconnect between each other, an identity disconnect. And whenever we address the issue of the Nile and the mistrust, it's based on it's always a political or hydrological intervention. But what we are doing in the Nile Journeys is not to address anything from a hydrological or political level, but from the deeper layer of the iceberg. So we want to restore our connection to nature. We want to restore our identity that is related to the Nile, and we want to reconnect and build relationship with each other. How we do that? We do that through 4 different dimensions. So the first thing is healing trauma of the past. The second thing is building relationship between each other. The third thing is creating spaces. We call them community hubs. So these community hubs are acupuncture points across the Nile to heal and to reconnect. And then the last thing is working on our practice. Our practice, part of it is what we talked about now, like this philosophy and how we, our theory of change, and also how we address the connection to the Nile. So these 4 spheres. Within the sphere of building the relationship and also the sphere of creating spaces, we are organizing different activities. And one of the activities that we collaborate in organizing is the Karmakol Festival. So the Karmakol Festival will be a place where artists from all the Nile countries, but also beyond, because it's not only a celebration about the Nile only, but also it's a celebration of the love of art and our connection to art. So the theme is the Nile. We will gather for 3 weeks. The first 2 weeks is a creative, what we call a creative village, where 2,000 artists from across the Nile and beyond, and Africa and beyond, will jam together, will fuse together, it's like an big open space where people are just exhibiting their artistic and cultural elements. The last week is the outcome of all of that. We will have a big party and a celebration, and musicians will come, but also the people who are in the creative village are representing what they have. So that's the festival in Sudan. That's the second edition. The first edition, we were not involved. It was during when Sudan was still under embargo, and the theme then was Open Sudan. This was happened in 2017. This and it was supposed to be a biennale, but it didn't happen in 2019 because there was the Sudanese revolution. 2020 didn't happen because of the COVID. And 2021, when we started having proper measure for COVID, we are organizing the festival. And surprisingly, we have more applicants this year than we had the first year. The first year, we had a total of 800 in the first 2 weeks, which is the Creative Village. This year, we will have 2,000 in the first 2 weeks. The last week, the first edition, we had around 30,000. And this year, we're expecting 50. So,
that's amazing, actually.
Yeah.
That there is this interest for what you're creating. It's a beautiful idea. It's like, it's really interesting to see the spaces like popping up that are an open call to practically be yourself and share with others and connect with others. So it's a beautiful initiative, and I hope it will become something that we can see more across the Nile. So this is like organized in Sudan. How do you feel that I kind of feel that many times the connections can start like slowly, instead of trying to connect like all the 11 countries, maybe like a deeper connection between Egypt and Sudan can start first, and then we go to the next, and then you go to the next. Do you feel that your participation in this specific edition might be an indication for that, or just something that could be a future dream to happen?
I see that I'm living my dream now. It's not that it's a future dream or anything. It's like there are lots of issues and there's a lot of things to work on, and it will outlive us. But connecting in Sudan is just, it could happen anyway. Like in 2022, we will have a film festival in Jinja, for example, in Uganda. So the place is hosting us all, not between Egypt and Sudan. I think even the participants from Egypt is the least in terms of numbers. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the interesting thing of this kind of intentional actions, it's that you can organize that much during this time, but then you never know what kind of connections will happen inevitably during this time between the people, and will continue going forward. And I think that that's practically the whole magic about creating communities in general, that once things happen and you don't know them, I think it's like where the magic starts happening. So as we're gonna go towards a little bit like closing today's interview, this first part that is going live on Facebook, I would like to have a more, I would actually like to ask you more if and what you feel is like it's your unique gift that you're bringing to the world, and what would you need right now as a support to go further yourself?
So I think the gift that I'm bringing, I'm not interested in most of the stuff that I would say materialistic stuff. So it liberates me to do what I'm interested in. And I think also I have a gift of connecting people and enhancing and nurturing their actions. And I think it's exhibited also it's manifested, in the name Nile Journeys. Nile is in reference to the river, but also in reference to nurturing impulses for living ecosystems. So that's my gift. And I forgot the second part of your question.
That's a wonderful gift, first of all, and it is very liberating when you can actually really liberate yourself and allow others to do the same. The second one is like, what would you need right now to support so you can grow further?
So a few things, actually, practical things. So we need first a few people who want to participate and be part of the festival in Sudan at the end of the year, but also people who so that's one. Second thing, I would really like to work on highlighting the elements, the energetic elements that connect with the water and the river. This is extremely difficult to highlight. It's extremely difficult to explain to certain worldviews, and most of the worldviews that actually operate and live with the Nile all on a daily basis. So how can we connect to, I basically want to listen or decipher what the river is speaking about, really. The third thing is I recognize that number two speaks to certain worldviews. I also would like to gather academics who, like a group of academics. I have some contacts, but this requires a financial capacity as well, which we will reach there to get into scenarios, like what are the practical scenarios of water. And the last thing I would say that will come eventually is partnership. So partnership, of course, in its financial term, but not only in its financial term, it's also in the essence of how can we grow the community hubs that we work with. We now work with 8 hubs across the Nile. We want by 2026 to have 25 hubs. So this requires a lot of nurturing, a lot of people who actually are present on the ground, that help, embody our practice and help the community and support the communities and listen to the communities at the same time to nurture their impulses. And this requires time, money, partnership, knowledge, capacity, and so on and so forth. It's a very practical one. So basically, the more we grow and in our connection with community hubs, the more people we want to employ and work with, and consequently, the more financial burden we have. Um, but I think this is in order of importance. Like first, uh, the the energetic connection to the river. Second is the practical scenarios of how the future of the Nile water is academically, having a consortium of people. And third thing is expanding our community hubs. And of course, the first point I mentioned, the earlier point I mentioned of applying to the festival.
Yeah, I have already shared the link and we will talk more about that also for the festival. Thank you for that. And thank you for today. I feel that the interest about water has been growing very steadily the last years. I see more people actually even understanding that water is not just a thing, but is like a living being. And also being attracted by the mystery of that we don't really know how water is really working, which I feel is also right now, I think it's also its attraction point. So it's like we get enchanted by the mystery of this element that operates completely different from every other element on this planet for some reason, and seems to have its own decision-making process of how it will flow, how it will work, when it will freeze, how it's going to move, what it's going to do. I am personally very interested about that. You know that already, that we have been experimenting on that. And I feel that that's inevitable, that more people will be drawn into this exploration. And mostly when there's possibility to be close to important sources like the Nile, like the Amazon, so like rivers that have been holding a lot of information for a very long time and are very essential for our planet. So before we go, I would like to see if there's anything else that you would like to share. And now, if not, we will go off Facebook and continue in our call offline. You're good? Perfect. Thank you so much for today. Then I'll just stop the Facebook Live.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Monkey, for today. That was really nice. It was great actually to hear a little bit more about your mission. I very much feel it, and I very much feel it also that is very grounded in you. So that's like really beautiful to see that you're bringing it together. You know, it's like it's very beautiful to see that as a vision. I would like us now to go into the second part, and then we can chat everything else. We also have time tomorrow in our call. So for the second part, I'm just posting you like the 3 questions in the chat so you have them there. Practically, it's who are you, what is your unique gift, and what support do you need? Feel free to repeat things that you have shared before, because it's 2 different parts. So you don't have to say something completely different, right? I just want to point that out. I will be silent because I want to record. Actually, let me stop